good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
Thank you for watching Consider This. Tonight on the show, we're joined by Faroze Nadar, Executive Director at Global Compact Network Malaysia, which is a local network of the United Nations Global Compact, which is a call to companies everywhere to voluntarily align their operations and strategies to support the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, of the UN. So welcome to the show, Faroze.
Thank you for having me here.
Good to have you here. I guess, it's only natural we begin at a place of understanding what the Global Compact Network Malaysia is, as well as the UN Global Compact. So it was launched, I believe, in the year 2000, yes?
Right.
All right, so tell us more a little bit about what it aims to achieve.
Sure. So UNGC, United Nations Global Compact, was launched in 2000 by the then SecGen Kofi Annan, who wanted to create a compact or a grouping of private sector companies to drive sustainability. Of course, by 20 years ago, the SDGs was not in existence, so we had a set of 10 principles covering environment, human rights, governance issues, and the whole idea was to get the private sector energy to drive the sustainability agenda as a third force by itself, without waiting for regulations or demand from consumers. So in the 20-odd years, it's kind of matured, and of course, in 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals was launched, the SDGs was then adopted as the main drive for UNGC to get the companies to align towards. Okay. So globally, currently, the chair of UNGC is actually the Secretary General. And how UNGC operates is that they operate via local networks. Currently, there's about 60 local networks in 60 different countries. Each country has an official local network to kind of localize the global flavor to the local context, and also to scale up what they're doing globally to the national perspective. So here in Malaysia, the Global Compact Network Malaysia is that network. So we primarily do localization of the global programs, and we also get the Malaysian private sector involved to global sustainability narratives.
Okay.
I wonder if I can ask you about your own involvement. How did you come from the private sector? How did you get involved?
Right.
And does anybody take you seriously? That's the second question. But we'll come to that after that. You just start with how did you get involved?
Right. So I actually got involved in corporate sustainability now about 10 years now.
Okay.
So before joining the Global Compact, I was actually global head of sustainability for a chemicals company. So I've always been a practitioner at heart. In my previous corporate life, that's how I got involved with the Global Compact Network Malaysia through various offices, and I kind of stayed in touch. And then just about 5 months ago, we had a renewal of our board of directors and a renewal of our executive secretariat. And I was asked, can I helm the executive director role? And of course, I said, well, that's great. Thank you for the opportunity. That's where I am right now. So I've always been a corporate sustainability practitioner.
Okay, the reason I wasn't trying to mock you. I mean, what I ask this because I know that, and even from the time of Karl Marx, recognizing the energy within the private sector, but driven by very different logic, right? The logic of profit, the logic of a kind of agnostic view of the world. You just get things done and by any means necessary. How do you get and convince companies to now align themselves with more ideological or cultural or moral vision of the world that's not about profit? That must be a very hard sell.
It is a hard sell. I think 10 years ago, it was an extremely hard sell. But I think, especially in the past two or just a year ago, the utopian vision of being sustainable has now closed. Because now if you look at the World Economic Risk reports, climate change and water risk are the two biggest risks for companies. So it's no more about, it's something that's going to happen in 10 years or 15 years.
It's a tangible risk,
It's a tangible risk now. So the conversation has now shifted. And also from an investor perspective, they're now breathing down the necks of private sector, saying, what are you doing for human rights? What are you doing for labor? How are you promoting gender equality? So the executives are now starting to hear questions that they would never expect as recent as 3 years ago. So now the seriousness of sustainability is starting to be more mature. So I came from the palm oil sector. So yes, I was a little bit fortunate that these issues were material issues, as we call it. So we had buying pressure, we had consumer pressure. So the whole palm oil sector kind of pivoted itself to be more sustainable. But I see this happening to the rest of the industries simply because if you look today, suddenly there's an unexpected flood here and there.
Right.
And they would have an operation there. How do they relate to that? And then if you look at now the demand of labor in supply chains, they're going beyond your iceberg which you show. They want to know what's happening behind your scenes. And this is becoming a norm for buyers.
Okay.
So to answer your question, the seriousness of sustainability has really peaked, especially in the past 1 or 2 years.
I mean, you brought up a lot of interesting things that I'm hoping that we delve into in the next 20 minutes or so. But one of the things that I do want to kind of understand, you said a little bit earlier, the local chapter is to localize global practices and bring it down locally and then also report up that way. And locally, how many companies are involved? Because it is a voluntarily initiative that companies themselves have to sign up to.
That's
in
right.
Malaysia, how many companies do we
So
have?
in Malaysia, we have 36 companies, and this is spread with large cap.
Are
and
you happy
SMEs.
with that number?
36,000? No.
Just 36.
We are definitely not happy with that number.
Okay.
I think we can do way better. In fact, what we have recently done is that we've entered into a MOU with Martrade. We want to look at least enlisting 500 SME exporters so that they can see sustainability as a third value add for their products. We are also engaging the PLCs very aggressively.
PLC, the public listed companies,
very
okay.
aggressively to get them to sign up to our charters as well. So we project at least a doubling of this for 2020.
In about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, multinational corporations were seen as the bad boys of the world, right? The bad boys of global capitalism.
Yep.
But I imagine, I guess, that it's easier to sign up an MNC today than it would be to get somebody from the SME sector, which is the backbone of the country's economy, right? Is that true?
Spot on. Simply because I think the demand and understanding of it is very different, right? So the MNCs, they have I would say, the resource muscle to look beyond my bread and butter issues, right? And they are strategic and they are thinking about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. SMEs are a bit different animal, right? They have got to see, at the end of the day, it's a bread and butter issue for me.
Sure.
I think one of the issues is that we kind of we kind of use the same yardstick across the board, where we can't treat SMEs the same as the big companies. How we need to engage SMEs is from a supply chain perspective driven by the big companies. So it has to be an ecosystem that is built around this. So we are seeing more issues signing up SMEs, but that's simply because we are not talking the right language to them. And as we hope, as we go, we mature, we understand their lexicons, and we'll be able to say the right things to get them on board this journey.
All right, Faroze, we're going to come back
Sure.
and continue this conversation. Sharaad, in just a couple of minutes, we'll continue and take a look at using that right language in addressing SDGs. Stay tuned to Consider This. We'll be right back.